We also have a look at cattle markets this week with Oklahoma State Extension livestock marketing specialist Derrell Peel. U.S. beef and veal exports took another hit in October. Shipments were down more than 14% from October 2014. Hong Kong was the biggest buyer, snapping a 9-month run from Japan. Exports to Japan were nearly 41% lower than a year ago. In the States, all fresh retail beef fell to just more than $6 a pound in November. The cost hasn't been below the $6 mark since January. We talked with Derrell Monday and started by discussing current market conditions. You know, it hasn't been so much fun for a while, Derrell, but the last few days we've seen a big increase. What's it coming from?
Well, it's hard to say. We've been through so much turmoil this year. We've been looking for a bottom for quite a while, and it may be that we finally got a bottom in. It seems like, we had a really strong day here, the week before Christmas. Futures closed up, limit up on both live and feeder cattle contracts. That same day, we got a bullish cattle on feed report. It just seems like we're getting a little bit of good news here to end up the year and maybe put a floor on this thing.
Yeah, we should mention we are talking Monday, so this thing could turn. But what do you think the market psychology is here as we end 2015, head into 2016?
Well, I think much of the second half of 2015 has been a transition year, and much of that transition, in my mind, has been a psychological change. Obviously, we've been in a bull market for a number of years that took us way beyond anything we really expected at the end of 2014 and in the first half of 2015. And then when we turned, as often happens, we kind of tended to go too far the other way. And so we've had this, an awful lot of negative psychology here in the fall of the year. It was aggravated by a real problem in terms of the feedlots losing some currentness, getting into some heavyweight cattle. But really the down market in the second half or the last 3 or 4 months of 2015 was probably overdone. Having said that, it looks to me like there's a good chance we'll come out in 2016. We'll reassess these fundamentals and find out that we haven't really changed them all that much. And there's a reason to expect some recovery in these markets, both feeder and fed cattle markets. And then we'll move on from there. All in all, I think 2016 is going to be kind of a sideways year, certainly as compared to the second half of 2015.
A shot at profitability in 2016?
I think there's a better chance of it, and again, it depends on what sector you're looking at. The feedlot sector, of course, struggled tremendously in 2015, added to their own woes, really, with the weight problem late in the year. But the realignment we've done in feeder and fed cattle prices will help a lot. I don't think we're quite out of the woods on feedlot margins yet, but we're getting closer, and we're going to work our way towards that. On the cow-calf side, of course, returns are down from 2014 here in 2015. And they'll be down slightly again in 2016, but again, we're talking about a much more kind of a moderate pace of growth over the next 2 or 3 years in terms of beef production and the supply pressure and the price pressure that will come with that.
Can you explain the impact of the country of origin labeling repeal?
Well, I think the biggest impact was it was, late in the year as we got down to the wire, we were at an ultimatum in terms of the sanctions coming. And I think it was one more factor that added to both the uncertainty and the bearish psychology at the end of 2015. So finally, at the very end, to get that repealed really just removes one more element of uncertainty in this thing. And I think that's probably the biggest impact. Having said that, if we hadn't done anything, we could have expected some significant real impacts in terms of the impact we would have seen on beef exports to Canada and Mexico, which are 2 of our biggest beef export markets.
What do you anticipate we'll see in January's cattle inventory report?
I'm looking for the January cattle inventory. In terms of beef cow, it's been an aggressive expansion year. All of the indicators would suggest that. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't add plus or minus 1 million head of cows. That'll be a 3 to 3.5% increase year over year in the beef cow herd. That's a very aggressive expansion rate, but one that we kind of anticipated, and it looks to me like we probably did that.
Looking ahead to January, the first cattle report of 2016, which will tally all cattle and calves in the U.S., is scheduled for release Friday, January 29th at 2 p.m. Central Time.